So actually I meant to show you something before I got to this level. Whoops, what was I thinking? I'm going to create a rectangle. And I'm going to go to my ISO view. Create a pad. Let's just go 5 inches. Reverse direction. We'll shade with edges. Oh, great. My edges are white. I can't make them any other color. Oh, so you have this sharp edge right here. Okay, so that edge makes this part not aerodynamic and to some not aesthetically pleasing. Or in other words, it will create a reflection line when the light hits that edge. So I may come into my sketch and think, well, I can fix that by highlighting this and going to a corner. And you can put in maybe 3/4 inch fillets and it should smooth it out. But you see these edges here? Those also are going to be reflection lines. So we don't want to have the reflection lines showing. Again, if you were to look at your monitor, look at the very top corner, you'll see a seam right on that corner where they did the filleted edge. That seam will show up as well. Well, so if you don't want that seam to show up, what you need is a conical curve instead of a corner in there. Alright, I'm going to delete the solid. Go back into my sketch. And I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to create a line from here to here, let's say. Don't link it to the axis. Now I'm going to make it easy on myself too. I'm going to keep this collinear and do something like this where it doesn't come to that perfect, where it didn't have that perpendicularity on the top. Okay, so I've just created 2 lines. And what I'm going to do now is do an axis from this point and go straight up. And I'm trying to get the tangency symbol to show up. So when I click on this, the line I just created is tangent to this line at that same point. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. When I'm moving around till I get that tangent symbol showing up, these 2 lines are tangent to the lines that they were coming from at the point of which they ended. So these lines here and here have they're adjacent. They have the same start and end point here. This line and this line, both of those are adjacent, and they are at that point right there, adjacent and tangent. Okay, now I'm going to create another line off of this point, and what I want to do is get it parallel. And I'm trying to create it parallel to this line here. So I got to kind of move this around until it gives me that parallel symbol. Now you see the parallelism show up. I'm going to click a position for that line. So this line and this line are parallel to each other, and I'll duplicate that on the other end. It must be adjacent, otherwise this will not work. And I'm going to come down here like so, try and get it parallel. God, sometimes it snaps right real easy. Sometimes it's a pain. Now I got my parallel symbol. The other way to do that would be to use your control button and grab both, and then use your dialog box and force parallelism if you weren't able to create it parallel. The reason why this needs to be parallel is it needs to be a parallelogram. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a conic between this elements here. Okay. So I'm going to create another axis from here to here. And I'm going to create another axis from this intersection point to this intersection point up here. Okay, and I got you can barely see it, but I got the coincidence symbols showing there. So I know that this line hits. And you see it's not exactly perfect, is it? It's kind of canted to the side. So more often than not, they're never going to be perfect. They're going to be all skewed, and you're going to try and build a conic to fit in between these elements. Okay. So if I go to the feature, points equal distance, I can create points along this line. I want them to be points equally spaced, 25%, 50%, and 75% of the line. So if I type in 4 and hit tab, you'll see that's not going to work out, because this should have been right in the middle. So it's not 4 equal points, it's 4 equal spaces. So in order to get my 4 equal spaces, I need the points to be 3. I'll hit tab. See, this one's in the middle, and this one here is right down in the middle, and then this one here is in the middle from this line to the top of this intersection point. So again, the intersection point here, up 25% is that first point. Up 50% is that point. Up 75% is that point. And up 100% is this point here. Those also are known as parameters. This would be a parameter of 25, parameter of 50, parameter of 75, parameter of 100. Okay. I'll select OK, and it's telling me what my equal distance is for that. I'm just going to go ahead and hide my constraints for a sec. Now that I have my parameters, I can now look for a feature called conic. This is corner and tangent arc. And these are where you'll find ellipses, arcs, and circles. And this is where you'll find conics. So I'm going to create a conic. Under conic, it tells me right here to pick the start point. So I'll choose this point as my start. It now asks for an end point. I want it to start on the left and end on the right. And now it's asking me for my parameter. So I pick my parameter and it creates a conic. Okay, I'm going to undo that. I don't trust that, so what I'm going to do is do another conic, and I'm going to use this one here. Take a moment to note that says creates an intersection point that defines the direction of the tangency at the first and second point conics. I'll put it back here again just real quick. Tangent intersection point. It's looking for the tangent intersection point when I use this feature here. Again, it asks for the start point, which is here. It now asks for the end point, which is here. It now asks for a tangent intersection point. This line is tangent to this line. This line is tangent to this line. This point is the intersection of those two lines. So I'm going to try and get that point. And then I'm going to click on the parameter, or that point right there. You'll notice that it says a parameter I'm turning this off here, it's driving me nuts. I'm going to start that over again. Conic, it asks for the first point, then the end point, then the tangent intersection. Then it asks for the passing point, which is the parameter. Remember I said this parameter was 75, that point? Well, it's getting 0.5 because on some of CATIA's parameters it measures all the way from the bottom and goes up, and then some starts here at where that horizontal line crosses and goes up. So this, from here to that point, this is 50%. And that's why the parameter in the tool palette up here says, right there, says 0.5. So if I go ahead and click on that point, make sure you get right on that point. Click on that point and click off here in no man's land. This is your conic. And that curve is a tangent blend to this line and a tangent blend to this line. And that conic is called a parabola. A parabola is at 50%. I'm going to change the color of this. Something easier to see. Okay, so that parabola is 50%. Let's repeat those steps. Under conic, you must use tangent intersection. Grab this point, this point, this point. I don't have to have a point. I could key in a parameter. So let's say if I key in 0.75. Remember last time I said 0.75 parameter was this point, but that's if you measured from the bottom all the way up. For this parameter, it's measuring from here and went up 0.75. When I click on this line and go to properties, and change this color here, this yellow curve represents a hyperbola. Anything above the red curve, any conic that goes above the red curve is a hyperbola. So any curve that goes below the red curve is going to be called an ellipse. Again, it's asking here for the start point, which is the beginning, the end point, which is this one here, the tangent intersection, which is this tangent intersection up here, and then down here, anything below, it shows me a parameter. Let's keep it simple. I'll type in 0.25 for a parameter in the palettes up on the top. Whoops, don't move it though. See, if I move it, it's going to change the number. So I'll come back in here and I'll just hit tab, 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 type in 0.25 that's highlighted in blue. When I hit enter, it creates the ellipse. I'll go to properties and look for another color. I think that one will stick out. Let's change the line weight just to make it a little bit easier. Hopefully it's going to show up on the video for you. I'll beef up the line weight. And what I've created here is the hyperbola on top, the ellipse is on the bottom, the parabola is in the middle. Okay, you can't go below this line. Now, if I were to create a line and connected those two lines with this line here, well, that line does connect it. They are adjacent at both ends, but they are not tangent. So using a line creates adjacent elements but not tangent elements, and is not going to create a smooth transition from one line to the next. This has discontinuity and tangency, meaning that there's an angle between this line and this line. There's also an angle between this line, and this line here. Okay? So if those two lines have an angle, you do not have a tangent blend from one to the next. The other popular fix is to go to corner and grab these two lines and then put in a corner, which looks fine, but did you notice what happened to the line? The line's actually shooting up to hit here and here. I've changed the location of these ends of the lines to extrapolate up to here, which I do not want. Okay, so therefore you cannot use a line and you cannot use the corner. Even though the corner, even though the corner had tangency and it was adjacent. There's tangency and they are adjacent. They are touching the same ends. The problem is you'll still get a reflection line at that tangent point and at that tangent point there. I'm going to hit undo. So this line here is a parameter of 0. That ellipse must come off that point and come over here. It can be a parameter of anything greater than 0. This is a parameter 0.25, a parameter 0.5, and a parameter 0.75. The point up here would be a parameter of 100. It cannot be at 100 because that's 100%. The only way I can get an ellipse to touch that point to come all the way up here would be to have a point at this very top. Then there would be no ellipse in there, and therefore that point would create discontinuity and tangency. It'd be at an angle here. If you went above 1, it's going to be concave like this. And that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a curve that blends into this line and that blends into this line. These three curves all blend into these lines here and here at that exact same point. They're all tangent, but they all fall underneath 100% and above 0%, or above 0.5 if it was measuring it from the bottom. So when you're using the sketch to create conics, it will use this line that divides it in half. That point right there is 0, and this point here is 100. From this, we could create surfaces that would be used as a conic surface to have an aerodynamic or aesthetically pleasing type of curve that would not have reflection lines. Alright, so that is your demo on creating conical curves. You are going to repeat this. You're going to create the hyperbola, parabola, and ellipse. Okay, you're going to create a line and explain why the line doesn't work, and you're going to create a corner, make a picture of the corner, and explain why the corner doesn't work, why we had to use the conical curves. And that's going to conclude today's demo.